Welcome back, Fit for Millions fans. My name is Jasmine, and we're here on another episode to give you weekly tips, motivation, and always faith based conversations. Today's episode, we're going to discuss faith over fear, how I made the biggest decision of my career. We're going to be getting into what it looks like to trust God when the path ahead isn't clear. I know for so many women, this one is going to resonate. So stay tuned. We're going to jump right into it. So I'm going to begin with this quote. So I wrote this quote down and I really, really want to begin there. Fear will always give you a reason to wait. Faith asks you to move anyway. For anyone that's starting a business or you've been thinking about making a big career change or a big career move, you'll understand how sometimes fear can creep in and creep up and give you every reason in the book not to move and to stay stagnant. It keeps you from your best self, it keeps you from growth and getting the best version of yourself to God. I truly believe fear is a hindrance and we know it's not of God. And overcoming fear, you can only do that through faith. I'm going to open with a confession, something that I'm going to be really honest with you about. When I made a decision to leave my career, I was terrified, I was nervous, I was afraid. I felt all the things that most of you would feel when you decide to leave something that you've done for 10 years, 20 years, 15 years, 5 years, even a year, right? And most people like me don't like change. I invite change into my life when it's good, but uncertain changes I don't really invite. However, the closer I get to God, or the closer I get to understanding more about myself and knowing God, I don't allow fears to keep me from doing what I know God has called me to do. And I'm going to get into that in a minute. But there was something stronger than fear. And that something is what this episode really is going to cover today. I promise that by the end of this episode, you'll understand what it actually looks like to choose faith over fear and not just the Instagram version of it, right? The real version. So, when we talk about pivoting in your career, I talk about that a lot on my channel. You know, I have a bunch of questions that people ask me, but I had some questions that I even asked myself. And these are some things that I wrote down that fear actually sounds like, even if nobody even has this conversation with you. I had them with myself. What if nobody takes me seriously in the industry? That was a big one for me, especially changing into something that no one knew me for prior to moving into a business consultant. That was the first fear that came to mind. What if I fail publicly after people have watched me succeed? That is something that often will run through your mind when you've been successful and now people are kind of looking at you wondering, well, why would you do anything different? Not understanding the call on your life. I also thought, what if this just is me being selfish? Personally, I know the clients that I had in my past career enjoyed what I did, and I enjoyed what I did as well. I enjoyed helping people with their fitness goals and seeing their progress throughout their lives. And it was a celebration every time they would reach a milestone. And it's something that kept me going in that career for 20 years. However, When I decided to switch into a different career, it wasn't really changing my career. It just changed the way I did it. So instead of changing women's and men's bodies and helping them on their fitness journey, this was more along the lines of helping women in business that maybe were struggling to scale, not understanding why their business was no longer working in the new economy, not really knowing what parts of their businesses they need to leave behind, or the part of their business that is working, they just need a revamp. Doing market analysis, understanding more about their clientele and what things just aren't working anymore because it's outdated. We have to be open to change in our business, especially when we have technology changing all the time. We have competition coming in, fresh ideas, different pricing. So much is changing. So you have to constantly be open to evolving. And if you're a new business owner or a new entrepreneur that is just embarking on this journey for yourself, it's really scary to think about taking on all of that responsibility all on your own. If you don't have a mentor and this is something you're doing for the first time, you kind of don't know where to start. And I've been in that position too. I started my first business at 30 and I felt really nervous and all the fears were there. All these questions that I'm asking myself, even in this stage of life, I asked myself then. This last question that comes up in some of our minds, and it definitely came up in mine, was what if I'm wrong about the calling? This is a big one because we oftentimes pray and we ask God to give us clarity on what He wants to do with our life, what our calling is. But oftentimes, we're not really certain if we're hearing God's voice or our own voice. And so we feel slightly hesitant to move on something that we are questioning if that was really even God that even said that to us. And I've also been there. I think some of that you have to know that the enemy is real and he's countering every thought that you have in your mind. And so I always step aside outside of my day to day running around and I find a quiet spot in my house or I just spend some time alone where it's quiet and I just pray and meditate. In that place of peace, I start to ask the questions that I'm uncertain about. And even if I don't hear God's initial response, I feel out how I'm feeling when I'm thinking about the calling on my life. If I'm feeling anxious, if I'm feeling uneasy, then I think about who this calling really is for, right? So you're being called to do something that's for other people, right? We are all servants of God. And when I think about the bigger picture, if it brings me peace and it gets me excited, then that's usually how I know that's the first indicator that this was a calling from God. A lot of times we hear the call, but we want to make it small because the bigger it gets, I feel like we could get anxious and we don't get peace and we become anxious about it. Know that in all things, God will be with you and He will see you through it. And you have to really just trust that. Important part of all of this is that fear is not irrational, it's information. The question whether you let it lead you or if you just allow it to be something that you're taking note of is really the difference. Fear can disguise itself as wisdom, practicality, and responsibility. Oftentimes, we don't really understand the fullness of what is happening to us when we're making changes in our lives. Fear doesn't go away when you get more prepared. It goes away when you stop letting it make your decisions. Don't allow fear to become the one thing in your life that keeps showing up and keeping you further and further away from your goals, your dreams, and your ambitions. What is faith? What faith over fear is not, excuse me. It is not pretending the fear doesn't exist. It's not reckless decisions with no strategy behind them. It's not guaranteed smooth sailing because you prayed about it. And it's definitely not absence of doubt. Even the most faithful people have doubted. When we look at the Bible and we take Abraham and Sarah, for instance, they definitely believed God was going to send them a child, even at their old age. But there was a point where Sarah doubted and she didn't think that it was going to happen the way that God said it was going to happen. So that doubt, that slither of doubt, even though she still had faith that it would happen, it made her do something that was outside of God's plan. And oftentimes we do this. I've done this in my life as well. And, you know, the good thing about God is he can bring everything back into the fold. No matter how many mistakes we make, he can use those mistakes and he can literally use it to your benefit. I'll tell you a short story about that. So, when I was 30 and I started my own first business and that calling on my life, I didn't believe that fitness was supposed to be a part of my career path. And long story short, God was calling me to do it. He was giving me the tools, He was setting me up, and I doubted. I didn't truly believe that I had what it took to make a business and a real career out of a few classes that I was teaching at the time. Because I just started off as an instructor. And I had a friend who was doing this on a bigger scale, traveling all over the world, and they had been doing it much longer than me, and they had a bigger following than I did. And I felt that, okay, I trust God that He's calling me to do this business, but I don't believe that I have what it takes by myself to really make it happen. So yeah, I'm gonna partner up with them because I have more faith that this business will work if I do it with them versus trusting God to do the business with me by myself. Okay. So again, to parallel that with Abraham and Sarah, they did trust that God was going to give them a baby and children, but they wanted to do it their way and how they saw it happening because there was still that slither of doubt. Same with me. Well, fast forward that story. I did start out my business doing it with that person. And a few months in, it did not work out. And the things that didn't work out were differences of how you run a business, how you show up to your business, your professionalism, your integrity. A lot of things started to show itself, and we were not in alignment. And so, unfortunately, that partnership ended and God continued me in that business. Well, I will say this. The moment I decided to cut ties with that person and continue on my path that God had me on in the first place, everything started to open up like I have never seen it before. More clients came, increase came, financial increase came. More people wanted to be a part of what I was building. So I was able to hire instructors to teach certain classes that at the time I just didn't teach or was interested in teaching. And everything really started to come together in a way that I don't think I could have imagined it. And again, it all goes back to trusting God the first time, not doubting what God is saying because He knows what He's doing. Even when we don't think that He should do it the way we think it should be done, honey, He knows what He's doing. And so, yes, while I made that mistake in the first couple of months of my business, God was still able to get the glory out of it and still get me to do what He called me to do. And it was amazing. And it blessed so many women and children because I also did children's classes. And it was the best time of my life. I still have clients that reach out to me today and they're like, oh my God, that was the best time of my life. Those classes were amazing. Oh, it helped me through depression. It helped me get off anxiety medication. So many things. So many people still talk about it to this day. It was truly impactful. So, yeah, follow what God is telling you to do if He is calling you to do it in the way He wants you to do it. Don't make a detour. Um, how Fit for Million began to take shape as a vision, and where did the name come from? So I wrote this down because I wanted to talk to all my listeners about how this even came about. During a really challenging time in my life, God slowed me down and allowed me to spend more time with Him. And in those moments, He started to show me why my career was getting ready to change. And I wasn't really responding to it the way that I should have. And I had so many fears and reservations, right? However, once I got past my doubts and I just said, you know what, God, I'm just going to do it afraid. I'm just going to step out and do what you've called me to do. I'm going to create. I am going to put myself out there, even on this podcast. I'm just going to put myself out there and talk to people and minister to people in the way that you would have me do it, God. Whether I'm comfortable or not, I'm just going to do it afraid. And I know that you will send people that want to grow, that want to know more about business and how this business even got started because they're interested in order to have their dreams come true and their businesses flourish. So here we are, right? One day I was literally just sitting in the kitchen and I had actually started this idea of business consulting with someone else. Again, I know, like, I do these same things over and over again in your life. You'll start to realize too, like, you start doing the same things over and over again. And I think it's something that God has to just work out of you. So 10 years later, I literally almost started the same thing in the same way with someone else. Hearing God's calling me to something, not having the courage to do it by myself. I'm like, yeah, I'll do it with somebody else. They'll keep me accountable. We'll keep each other accountable. It'll be fun. It'll be this. And I started that way. And I was going to go into business consulting in the industry that I just came out of, which is the fitness industry, because I've been in leadership and regional positions, management positions. I run my own company. So I had all the business acumen and understanding of how the ins and outs of a business runs, even from an entrepreneurial standpoint. And it was like a no brainer, right? So we're going to help other fitness businesses excel. Well, that didn't happen. And I just had to trust God that He knew what He was doing. So when I was initially starting that journey, we had a different name and it was a name that we felt like worked for what we were doing. Lo and behold, God had given me this other name, but I'm like, okay, God, there's two names here. Like, what am I supposed to do? And He didn't really give me direction in what to do with this name. So, long story short, when that business venture didn't work out with that person, I was left with the name. And I asked God for more clarity on what the Fit for Millions actually meant. I was like, is it fitness related? What does it mean? And God was so clear with it. He said, the Fit for Millions is business owners that are fit to run a business for millions of people, whether they serve millions of clients, whether they serve millions of employees, they're fit for millions of people, the people that I am going to bring to their business, millions of dollars, making them fit to prepare them for millions of dollars. So I said, whoa, that is huge. And God was showing me that in a lot of people building businesses, sometimes integrity, accountability, ethics, standards get a little lost. And so God was showing me we need to build business leaders that are built on foundations that are of a higher standard. Because once their business is built and rooted in these pillars and on these foundations, I will bring the millions. They don't ever have to worry about it, but they need to be fit. Just like you've got people fit for their lives and their bodies had to go through a transformation. They had to eat a certain way, work out a certain way. You were getting their bodies fit for their health or a marathon or whatever it was. You were shaping their bodies to prepare them for the journey that they were getting ready to go on. It's the same with business. I will use you to help women be fit for the venture that I'm going to have them go on and take them on. I truly believe that God has called me to connect with women to prepare them for their millions. And I know that's a huge calling. Trust me, when I heard it, I was afraid. I was like, I don't even know if I'm fit. And God was like, you are more than capable. I have prepared you for such a time as this. Be encouraged. Don't be afraid. I will be with you. I will bring the women to you who want to build these businesses, and I will help you to help them be the servants that they were truly called to be. And that's how Fit for Millions was created. So, yeah, pretty cool stuff. Oh boy. So, as I end this, I know it's so sad. I have only 30 minutes. I try to keep everything within that 30-minute time frame, but we're going to continue to have episodes that will have you coming back. And hopefully, if you're on your drive to work or your drive to your business or wherever you are in your life, whether you're cleaning or cooking, you can put this on and be encouraged. For all my ladies out there building businesses, let's build them with integrity, grace, kindness, and accountability so we can be fit for God's millions that He's bringing into your business. Okay. I want to recap before I end with you a few things that I want you to focus on actually before I recap. So, four things that I want you to think about this week. Four moves standing in your way. There are some crossroads that I know sometimes we come to and we don't understand how to proceed forward. So, I want you to write some things down. Get yourself a framework. You have to see it, you have to visualize it in order for you to make it come to pass, right? Movement one, I want you to write down, name the fear out loud, write it down. Unnamed fear has more power than a named fear. Whatever that fear is for you, keeping you where you are and you're in that crossroads, right? You want to make a change. You want to do something different. You want to step out. You want to revamp your business. Name that fear. Okay. The second thing, separate the fear from the facts. What do you actually know? And what are you assuming? This is where self sabotage sometimes come into play. Okay. We fear what hasn't even happened yet. We stop the train before the train has even taken off and left the station, So let's separate that fear and we're going to look at the facts. Okay. And the third one here, identify the fateful next step. I'll say it again. Identify the fateful next step. Not the whole plan, just the next step. What is it? Write that down so you understand that one next step you need to take to make this business that God has called you to and bring it to pass, bring it to life, okay? The last one, take it before you feel ready. Do the thing that represents trust, not the thing that represents comfort. I know in life we get comfortable in our positions and in our jobs. We can do it with our eyes closed. We know everything about the business, the job, whatever career you're in. Maybe you're running your business and you've been running it this way. It isn't really working, but it's what you know. Okay? You're not getting any peace, any freedom. You're not spending time with your family because you're everything. I've been there too. You're the salesperson, you're the business talent, you're the accountant, you're the counselor, you're everything, okay? Don't get comfortable in that position. Know that God is calling you higher. So, you may not feel ready for the change, but do it anyway. We feel as though we need to have certain things in order. People who are new to entrepreneurship, they may be saying to themselves, "Oh, I need to get certified. I need to go back to school. I need to do all these things you'll make up in your mind in order for you to feel ready." Trust me, if God is calling you to it, He will give you every tool to prepare you to do exactly what He's calling you to do. Okay? Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the evidence that something matters more than the fear. So be encouraged. I'm going to end us with a prayer because I know someone listening to this today needs the courage to trust God in this moment of change and this pivot in their life. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, allowing this sister to listen in on another woman's journey so that she may know how to run and walk in her own. I pray that every listener's hearts and minds be open and renewed and restored, oh Father God, that they walk into their new season brave, bold, and without doubt. We know that fear sometimes will creep in, but allow them to do it with fear because we know that moving in the faith will overcome that fear. And the closer we get to you and the closer we begin to honor what you have called us to do, oh God, we are truly operating in our calling and in our design and in alignment with you, oh Father God. You are our source. You are our protector. You are our blueprint. When we feel as though we don't know our way, you make a way. Open up the hearts and minds of these listeners. Make their paths clear. Show them the light, oh God. Show them the way. May this word be confirmation to their spirits and their souls that it is time to move, it is time to change, and you will be with them every step of the way. Let no weapon formed against them prosper. May they run and not get weary. And we thank you, Heavenly Father, for this word, for this prayer, and for this time. So just to recap for Millions fans, we're going to write down those 4 things this week, okay? I want you to name one fear that has been making decisions for you. You're going to write it down. Then you're going to write down the faithful next step underneath it. Just one step, okay? And we're just going to start there. Before we close, if you know anything about my YouTube channel, you know I talk about this often about understanding who God is and understanding the leader in you. If you haven't, please follow me, subscribe, write a review. I love to hear from you. We're on Instagram. So if you wish, check us out there. Let me know if you want me to talk about anything specific in an episode. Let me know in the comment section. I love you. God bless you and your business. Have an amazing day.